Top of the morning to you laddies, my name is Professor Teeks. Today we're going to be talking about Mormons. Actually, I'm getting a word that they're not called Mormons anymore. They haven't been called Mormons since the late 2010s. Why is that? Well, it's because when you call the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Mormon Church, you're putting emphasis on the prophet Mormon rather than Jesus. So they wanted to put Jesus in the name. And so it's called the LDS Church now. So anyway, I'm not going to be calling them Mormon throughout this video. I'm going to be saying LDS. And as you can see from my shirt, I am a LDS individual. My pronouns are LD/S. If you know me pretty well, you would know I like to yap in all of my intros of my videos. So if you just want to skip right to the reaction portion of this video, just go to this timestamp right here that I'm pointing at. So allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Professor Teeks, and I have been a part of the LDS Church my entire life, for as long as I can remember. I've been going to church every single Sunday, and in fact, I haven't missed a single day of church since like October, or maybe even before that, I don't remember, because I am a Sunday school teacher now. I am teaching 9-year-olds, and that is because I am 18, and I didn't want to go on a mission, so they're like, okay, well, we're going to give you a calling. You're going to teach 9-year-olds. By the way, I'm going to try to talk as fast as I can, because I just took a shower, and I took some sleeping pills, and so the clock's ticking. I'm going to start crashing out partway through this video, so I'm going to try to speed this up. And I'm going to wear this hat to cover the hairline because it looks like I'm balding because my hair is still wet. Now, teaching 9-year-olds, it is very, very difficult. You already know about the Gen Alpha epidemic, okay? These little kids nowadays, they're brain rotted as heck. And these kids, even though that they're LDS and their parents are supposed to be super strict about their internet access, they still know what GAT, Sigma, Riz, mewing is. Okay, now to be fair, they don't really say those words anymore because they're kind of outdated. Nobody really, brain rot has ascended to a whole new generation, and so I don't even know what words they're using now at the top of my head. But yeah, teaching 9-year-olds, it is quite difficult. I'm still kind of experimenting with how I want to teach them. I've been using all kinds of different tactics on how to tell stories from the Book of Mormon. Now, a lot of people talk about their religious trauma and how they used to be in the LDS Church, and I am able to emphasize with those people, like, I can, pretty easily assume, yeah, not everyone will have good experiences while being religious. Because when I was in middle school, I started to not care about the church as much. And partway through high school, I started to care about it a lot more because I went to a summer camp thing called FSY, for the Strength of Youth. And I had such a fun time. I realized, gosh dang it, I spent a whole week just learning about Jesus and learning about how to be a good person. And, I felt good doing it. So I'm like, you know what? Let's take religion a little bit more seriously. So that's what I did. That's what I did from there on out. And so that brings us to today. As for everyone else that still hates the church for various reasons, like I said, I can emphasize with that. I get where you're coming from. Overall, I don't think any of that matters. It doesn't matter if you have a horrible bishop or you hated going to church. You can still be a good person, and you can still choose to not drink alcohol. You can choose to not do drugs. You can choose to not gamble and waste all your money. Because at the end of the day, none of us are perfect. It doesn't matter if you feel like you need to compare yourself to everyone else. Okay, no one is perfect. Not even the bishop, not even the president of the church, Thomas S. Wait. No, that was the previous prophet. Russell M. Nelson, yeah. In fact, you don't even need to be LDS. You can just be a non-binary Christian. And what I mean by that is a Christian that doesn't align with any particular denomination. Like, they believe in the scriptures, they believe in God, they believe in heaven, but they're not a Methodist, a Baptist, a Catholic, or an LDS Mormon or anything. So with all that out of the way, you know what kind of person I am, you know the biases I have, so let's just get right into the reaction. So this is a video by Short Cake. Now, her actual name on YouTube is Shgurr. That was her other channel, and I used to watch her way back in middle school.
Most of you probably know that I'm kind of religious because I've had videos in the past where it's like my Draw My Life series. And there was an emphasis on the religion aspect of my life. But, I'll get more into it as I go on. But yeah, little Shgurr was born into a Mormon family. It's not like I had any other choice. I had to be Mormon. My parents were Mormon, their parents were Mormon, and so on. We were just the standard, typical, goody Mormon family that followed all the rules, all the shebang. But even as a kid, there was part of me that, didn't really vibe with church in any way. But I really had no choice. I had to go. So there was a lot of things that I was taught as a kid that really didn't make any sense. Some of them had to do with race, some of them had to do with women's roles in the family and men's roles. And when I was in second grade, I was questioning everything. I don't want to bore you guys with the details about, what the Mormon faith is all about, but just imagine like Christianity, and then you add like an extra book to it, and then you add some like OCD rules to it. That's pretty much Mormonism.
OCD? I've never heard that before.
In my childhood that really stood out was this idea that when everyone goes to heaven, they all turn white. That was a teaching taught to me as a child, and I went to a school where there was people of all different races. Like we had Asian, we had like Samoan, we had different types, and I would sit there in second grade thinking like, trying to picture them as white, and it just made no sense, and I didn't want them to be white either. I thought their features were fine, and I was just so confused. And, modern day Mormons would say, well, we don't teach that or anything. Well, okay, I was taught that as a kid.
Yeah, I actually have never heard that before. Like, you go to heaven and you become white. What I've been taught and what I'm supposed to teach my kids in Sunday school is when we go to heaven, we will be with Jesus, and the details are kind of blurred, but then you will be resurrected. Everyone will be resurrected. And you will be put into a perfect body. Now, people's interpretation of a perfect body might have been, yeah, everyone's gonna be Caucasian. Like I said, I've never heard that before. I was born in 2006, and so when Shgurr here was in second grade, she must have been, it must have been around the mid-2000s. So yeah, I've never heard that before. So let's continue.
And the story is that the Mormon faith tends to change a lot about its rules, about its teachings, and it's very subtle, and you really don't notice it unless you pay attention. As a young girl, I was taught women were supposed to be submissive to men, and that made no sense to me because men and women were going to school. We were doing the same exact things, but whenever I returned home, it was automatic. Oh, because you're a girl, you need to clean up after the men while they just sit there. And I always thought that there was something wrong with that. And deep down, I knew my nature wasn't really submissive in that way.
Okay, I'll interject real quick. So yeah, I feel like gender roles is just always been a hot topic for the past decade. Now, she doesn't have like video evidence or any audio clips of people actually telling her these things, and so this is just based off of memory. And so I don't want to accuse her of just like skewing her own perception or memory of just saying, yeah, if you're in the LDS church and you're a woman, then you need to be submissive. And there is some truth to that. And to some degree, as a female in the church, and if you get married and start having kids and whatever, then you do need to kind of be submissive in order for the relationship to be seen as healthy by everyone else. Editor Teagues here, okay? I am once again fresh out the shower, and so my hair is still wet even while editing this video. So if you couldn't tell, I had no idea how to answer this question. Is the church making women submissive? I went and talked to my mom about this the very next day, because she is the arbiter of all Mormon opinions. Everything that is true comes from her, okay? I know jack wad about the church compared to my mother. Now, Shgurr in the video that I'm reacting to goes on and complains about the culture of the church and how it's toxic. And that is very, very true. Me and my mom both agree that the culture that has been kind of developing since the start of the church way back in the 1800s has always been very toxic and very like almost gossipy, There's a lot of pressure to be a certain way. And in the past like 5 to 8 years, I feel like it's kind of died down because people are just more open to their kids maybe being gay or maybe even having gender dysphoria. And so like now there's a little bit less pressure to kind of fit in because the church needs to be open to all people, no matter how sinful they are or how much they don't like have the lifestyle of the average LDS church member. Like if you want to divorce your wife or husband, there's a lot of stigma behind that. Like, oh my gosh, they're gonna divorce? You can't divorce. You're sealed in the temple forever. Don't you understand? Now, if you know anything about history, divorce has been a taboo in like basically all religions. Okay, so for many decades, women have been pressured into being submissive. I'm not going to say forced. In some cases they are forced, but I'm going to say pressured to be more general. They're pressured to be more submissive to their husbands and be incubators and have very little to do with church services for a very long time. And that's just something that people were used to. It was the culture. That's something that has basically been the rule of like many societies for millenniums, probably. Because in tribes, the women take care of the children. They can't get muscles like us manly men, and so the men are going out slaying those wolves and gathering meat and using their muscles to punch down trees like Steve Minecraft. And so basically what I'm saying is, Jordan Peterson style, men and women have their biological roles, and so it's best for us to just stick to those. And so that goes for the church. I think a lot of us men in particular, and even some of the women, would agree a lot of women are not mentally fit to be a bishop. And so that's a hot take, but I'm going to say it because women should be taking care of the children. They should be a primary president. The men, they can be the bishop. They can bless the sacrament, the bread and water. Often, we women don't realize that the power through which we accomplish much good in our callings and in our homes is an expression of the priesthood power. As a matter of fact, all the good that is done in the world is done through God's power. Knowing that women have access to that priesthood power strengthens us to be able to do what is asked and whatever responsibilities or assignments are ours. So, with all that being said, through this formal churchy language, women have their own authority, okay? And people don't like to acknowledge that because they think that the stuff that men do in their role in the church is just much cooler than what the women already do. If you really think about it, having children and being able to raise them up and have them think and do things the way that you do, that seems like a lot when put next to the things that us men do. Okay, yeah, we can do baptisms, we can bless the sacrament, and we can be bishops, but like, we're overseeing the community. The whole community is kind of like our children, but we're not related to them. But then the women, they are putting in 110% into their children. Of course, fathers kind of have to put in their fair share as well. They have to give in like an extra 5% at the very least. And so, like I said, men and women have their biological roles, and so it makes sense for the church to kind of recognize that and just give people these roles that they can fulfill to achieve maximum efficiency. Okay, like I said, I don't think, and a lot of other people believe this as well, I don't think women are fit to be bishops. What if you have a really manly woman in the church? Well, you'll have to try really hard to prove that you can be the exception, because you're going to have to undo decades of this culture, this pressure in the church to fulfill the role that people have put onto you. So back to the question, are women in the LDS church submissive to their husbands? The answer is yes. So to kind of summarize basically what I said is, there's the community pressure to be submissive, first of all, and second of all, it is men and women's duty to fulfill their gender roles, not only because God said so, but because I think it's pretty safe to say maximum efficiency comes from fulfilling your God-given roles. I was given the role of being a primary teacher like a little bit over 6 months ago, and I had no idea that would be my calling. I thought like maybe I would work in the temple, or maybe I would like do something else in like treasury or something, I don't know. But no, they said I should be a teacher, okay? And I was pretty surprised that I got the role. And, I gotta say, there's something that's clicking with me and these kids. I never would have expected. I hate kids. And then all of a sudden I'm teaching these kids and they actually like me. Okay, like they almost look up to me this quickly. Like they actually listen to what I say. for the most part. I mean, there's some bad apples in the class, but you know, like I actually feel the holiness of this role. You see, men and women, they have gender roles for a reason. Okay, women are more nurturing, they're more emotional, and they can nurture children and whatever. And so why should they have the priesthood? You know, men, they're manly, they have muscles, and they get the priesthood because I don't know, they just do. Okay, stop asking questions. I'm not the person to ask about this. You can ask an actual bishop or someone that's older than me. I'm sorry I have to interject for this long, this early into this reaction video. So now that I've wasted this much time away from your day, you know, might as well waste a little bit more time and tell me what you think in the comments below. Should women be as submissive as they are in the church? For those that don't want to comment and they have nothing to say, let us continue.
As a second grader, I was seriously thinking about all these things, and I came to the conclusion that my life would be so much better if I was not Mormon. I was envious of other kids that didn't have to do religion or go to church or anything like that. And in my time, church was 3 hours long, dude.
It was 3 hours long for me as well. Yeah, I totally see where she's coming from, because church to me, when I was like growing up, like late elementary, early middle school age, it was just becoming unbearable. Like I didn't know what I was even doing there. I didn't feel like I really got along with some of the kids, because LDS kids and their LDS families, they are out of touch and cringe as frick, because they didn't go on the internet like I did. I mean, now we have the Gen Alpha kids. They go on the internet probably more than me. And so they know all the terminology. I'm able to like speak to them in their language. I'm like, so Jesus was able to riz up the disciples and be like, hey, bruh, you don't gotta crucify me. Yeah, I didn't get along with a lot of people in the church. And so I just kind of grew astray, and I feel like that's kind of normal. Like a lot of people kind of go through that, whether they're religious or not. It's just kind of a natural occurrence in life. And so that's why being religious as like a preteen or a young teen or a late teen, it's very, very difficult, because we teach stuff about this all the time in church. There's all of these voices that just surround you, like, hey, come here. No, you can leave the church. You can skip 1 or 2 sacrament sessions. And so we're taught that you need to stay on the straight and narrow path. Don't diverge into a casino or a bar or a woke party university college. At that point, it's kind of the parents' job to recognize the signs that maybe their kid isn't enjoying church as much as you would want them to. Sit them down, explain to them, hey, I understand you're not enjoying church as much as you probably should. And so what can we do to make it a little bit more fun for you? And so some leaders actually did that with me. Like I had it pretty easy when I think about it. Like they actually asked me like, hey, I know you don't want to come to Mutual all that much or Boy Scouts. What's something that we can do that you would enjoy? And I told them, a Zoom meeting so we can all be home instead of actually going to the church and doing activities. And so that's what we did. If you have leaders in your church that are super stubborn, then I'm sorry. Some people they're just stubborn like that. And so you might be in an unlucky position where the parents won't sit you down and try to talk through why you're not enjoying church. And so it's just kind of tragic. The point is, it's the parents' job to make sure that their kids have a personal testimony of our Lord and Savior and the church as a whole and their faith. I'm not entirely saying that it's the parents' fault if the kid leaves. There's always some like intersectionality involved and whatever, and like things that happen that are out of the parents' control. And like maybe there's some kids in the Sunday school class that are just kind of sinners and they're not totally up to date with their faith, and they just go to church because their parents force them, and then they become a bad influence on your son or daughter, which happens a lot. And that basically happened to my older brother, and now he's a Norse pagan. He's probably never going to come back to the church ever again. He's going to be a Viking and do goat blood sacrifices.
But yeah, as a kid, church was so boring and so long, and I dreaded going there, and I was socially anxious, undiagnosed autistic, and it was just, it was hell. It was
Autism is her superpower. It's my superpower as well.
It's not like I can visit other religions or even have friends that aren't religious because of how, I had controlling parents kind of thing. Because I had very controlling parents. I was not really allowed to make friends with other people. Like, they had to be Mormon in order for my parents to trust them.
Okay, yeah, I hate that. I hate it when parents in the church do that. They can do it sometimes. They can look at a kid and like you can invite them to their home and they can be like, okay, I don't think this kid will be a good influence on you. I'm sorry you can't hang out with him. The reason why I hate that parents shelter their kids from other kids so much outside of the church is because when you over shelter your kid, they don't know how to deal with the real world. When they accidentally make a friend that's like a struggling alcoholic or like chain smoker or something, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, evil, twitch at the sight of wickedness. That's something that one of the mothers in my church actually inadvertently taught her kids to do. She wasn't literally wanting them to like twitch at the sight of sin, like, but they literally would do that whenever they would pass by someone smoking outside a grocery store. They'd be like, honey, what's wrong? Oh, there's someone smoking over there. I'm like, oh, you silly. You don't need to literally twitch at the sight of wickedness. And it's just kind of a joke in their family now. I thought that was kind of funny. But long story short, kids need to learn how to think for themselves and know what is sin and what is not. They need to know what to participate in and what to just stay away from and what to just like listen to rather than do, you know? I have friends that are single mothers that have experience with like LSD, weed, maybe some other drugs, some alcohol. I know I'm not going to do any of those things. Now, it's different if I met these people in middle school because, you know, my brain is barely developed in middle school. So maybe it's good I stayed away from people like that for the most part. When it comes to like high school age, you need to encourage your kids to make friends at school that are not in the church because, like I said, they need to learn about how the world really is, okay? And I feel like a lot of liberal parents do that as well. I know I keep on, you know, this is the second time I'm bringing up the woke mind virus, but you can't just teach your high school age kids that the world is all sunshine and roses. I'm talking too much. I'm going to fall asleep.
My parents taught me to basically proselytize to my friends at school, which that makes you a social weirdo. Religious parents need to stop teaching their kids to do that because it just makes you a social pariah. Like, you're...
What does proselytize mean? Oh, convert or attempt to convert someone from one religion belief or opinion to another. Yeah, so that is actually something that is very, very common, a foundation of the LDS church. And I am guilty of doing it. I've tried to convert people sometimes, but especially the people that I think really, really need it. Okay, because there's some people that might claim to be religious, but they don't ever go to church. They don't ever read the Bible. So I don't even know what the point of saying that you're religious is. You're clearly not God-fearing. Now, I'm not trying to talk down to those people, but, you know, like I had a friend, I still have a friend, I'm still friends with him. His parents are Orthodox Christian, and I tried to invite them to church. My friend went to church with me like 3 times so far. He has a copy of the Book of Mormon and all that, but he's scared to tell his dad about it because he's afraid of how he would react. And so I'm thinking the dad might not care as much as he think he might care, but it really is up to him to tell him, and so I'm not going to do it for him. But yeah, this is just basic missionary work. Now, I mentioned before, I didn't want to go on a mission, so that's why I'm a Sunday school teacher, as I'm in college at the moment. But I have some friends that are on missions right now, because we're the same age, and so we got people in California, North Dakota, I think, or South Dakota, I don't remember. Someone in Brazil, someone was gonna go to the Netherlands, but they got moved to the United States. I don't know. Oh, someone in Ecuador, I think he's gonna come back soon. Yeah, I got friends all over the place. And they seem to be loving it. Anyway, yeah, converting people, very common. That's all I gotta say.
And I grew up with 9 siblings, and so there was like 10 of us.
In the loud house, jump, shove, push and shove. That's how we show our love. In the loud house. Imagine having 9 siblings. I only have 2 older brothers, and so I had it so easy. We didn't have to share rooms. We all had our own rooms. But yeah, if you have more than 2 siblings, it might be over.
That's really just because of the Mormons' teachings of, you know, multiply and replenish the earth. Bro, there's like 8 billion humans. I think we need to stop.
There's 8 billion humans and barely any of them are LDS. 17.5 million in the whole world are LDS. Look at that. Look at that, bro. That's pretty good. And 367 temples out of the 8 billion people. It's not enough. We need more. Bada bing, bada boom. What you gonna do about it?
But because I had that many siblings, my whole life was about my siblings. Yeah, I'm the second oldest of 10. I just was not allowed to do anything as a kid. So please, if you're considering having 10 kids, don't. It is the absolute worst. It just, I can't even begin to tell you how awful that is. But this story's not about that.
I don't know how much I'm able to say here because I'm not a parent. I'm not in a family that's super big. But I know large families in the church that are very, very happy, except for the mom, of course, because she's the one that has to birth the kids. And I feel so bad for them because there's like some families that have like 7 kids or just like 5 kids. And it's like, eh. See, here's the thing about having way too many kids. Okay, it's so bloody miserable in the beginning, not only for the parents, but for the kids themselves. Like Shgurr here, you have to share everything. You have to learn to love each other, even though you despise each other to your very core. And in the long run, imagine how much you will love each other as adults, you know? Now, obviously, there's outliers. There's a lot of family members, like even in my own family, like my uncles and aunts, they hate each other because they just had to deal with each other all the time. You know, it's one of those things where some of the blame is kind of put on the parents because they're the ones that kind of have to control everything, and it's a monumentous task. But anyway, the reason why I'm talking about this is because, you know, telling people to just not have so many kids, that sounds like a liberal argument, okay? Strike 3 of talking about the woke virus. People should be allowed to have as many kids as they want because there's some families that are happy. Ignore the ones that are not happy. They don't matter.
The church kind of tells you to not date till you're 16. But before then, you have like no experience. So if you follow that, like when you get to like 16, you just panic. That's at least what happened to me.
Bruh, I've been saying this for quite a bit now because, yeah, I was told the same thing. You can't date until you're 16. I don't think my parents really cared that much. I had a girlfriend when I was 15, so I was a bit of a Chad compared to everyone else. Okay, but again, it was an girlfriend. It wasn't in real life or anything. Starting to date at 16, I can just see the results here. Most of the LDS people that are my age, they don't know a dang thing about flirting. They don't know a dang thing about getting rizzy with it. And it's just so sad. Like, it just makes me feel like that there's like such little hope for the Gen Z generation of LDS kids. A lot of it's because of the pandemic, obviously. Everyone in the world was affected because of it, and so everyone's kind of antisocial now. And on top of teaching your kids that they can't date until they're 16, it's just adding fuel to this whole bonfire. And on top of so many of these kids being inadvertently inbred and autistic and whatever, Gen Beta being produced by my age group pretty soon, I don't see any hope. I feel like we should just start adopting kids because these couples that are my age that are gonna get married this decade and next decade and whatever, their kids are going to be so autistic and they're going to have all these terminal illnesses and whatever. I'm starting to sound like a eugenicist. I'm probably just going to cut this part out. Look, bro, I understand why we can't date until we're 16. You don't want kids freaking before marriage, so you want them to be mentally mature before they start dating, but we've seen the results. There are so many normal people that are not in the church that start dating whenever the frick they want, like late elementary school and middle school and whatever, and they are top tier Rizzlers, okay? Like they graduated from Rizzler University in middle school, and they're just Chads, okay? Yeah, they're having premarital schmexy, but they actually know how to get girls and dudes. But the LDS kids, they don't know a dang thing about dating. And the parents just kind of let them figure it out because they're old Gen X boomers and stuff. They don't know what modern dating is like now. I can go on and on, bruh. So yeah, I think this is the most valid thing she said. I think we need to push back the minimum age for dating in the LDS church. That's just my opinion, though.
I was taught that God and Satan are like constantly in your mind giving you thoughts. And any good thoughts are coming from God, any bad thoughts are coming from Satan. And that really messed me up. Because turns out I have ADHD and my brain does not seem to like producing dopamine at all. So the whole time, throughout my whole childhood, I was suffering heavily. Even saying that out loud kind of makes me teary-eyed a little bit, thinking about little Shgurr. And you know, being autistic did not help. I'm like super sensitive to sound and lights and just everything. So I constantly felt like I was being spiritually attacked or spiritually targeted because, you know, people didn't like me because I was autistic. Like,
Yeah, she's starting to remind me of one of the kids in my Sunday school class. Again, I don't know how much I'm allowed to share, but there's this kid. He's neurodivergent. He's a special little baby boy, and he has no friends as far as I can see. None of the kids in the class like him. Okay. I feel like everyone in the class are autistic to some degree, but this kid, he's like on top. He is the king of the autists, and he's super ADHD. He interrupts the class a lot, and so I have to like give extra attention to him, and it's a challenge in itself. Like, he's not terminally online, as far as I'm aware. He doesn't get the brain rot term, so at least I don't have to hear skibbity gat riz mewing all the time. Like, in the church, kids are kind of dumb and ignorant, so when they see a kid like this that's super autistic and ADHD, they're not going to flock over to him. When the kids get older, generally what happens is they start understanding mental disorders, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe I should invite him to my birthday party, you know? And so being neurodivergent, I hate saying that word. Just say retarded or autistic. I don't care, mate. Being a special little boy or girl when you're young, it is quite a challenge. And luckily, I didn't get super duper annoying until I was in middle school. Before that, I was fairly normal. I don't even know what happened. Like, something in my brain just kind of like, ooh, and I just got super annoying. I was fairly normal when I was in elementary school, and the annoying kids were the kids that were very ADHD. And so it was a bit different when I was a kid. And so, yeah, Shgurr, I see where you're coming from. Kids don't understand retards. And so it makes sense that you were chastised and whatever, if your story is true, that is.
Yeah, my family was super into it. We prayed every night. My parents held family home evening every week, which sucked because we had so many kids and it would take hours and it was so boring. Like, church was already 3 hours long, and then we would come home and like have family home evening for like another 3 hours. Sundays were all church event, I swear.
Yeah, Sundays, part of the goal of the LDS church is that Sundays are the big day. It's the day of the Lord. And if you want to be more like Jesus, then you want to make every day a Sunday. You want every day to just be perfect, and you don't want to do anything bad and whatever, which is basically impossible because at some point you're going to need to turn on the TV to see something and go on the internet to figure out if your city needs to be evacuated, if there's like a hurricane or something. So, you know, just putting that out there. To put it in a little bit more perspective, Sundays, if you're like in a perfect LDS family, Sundays are communist China / Nazi Germany, basically. I don't want to say worse. That's a strong word, but like, instead of the government surveilling you, you have God surveilling you. And so Sunday is like the Lord's day. And so, yeah, it's very restrictive, and a lot of people just aren't comfortable with that. And, you know, it is what it is, because you got to learn like discipline, spiritual discipline, social discipline, discipline from substances, or like fasting, like not eating a meal for once a month at least. So, you know, if you don't like it, then that's fine. Rules are rules. If you want to be a committed member, then you're advised to follow them, or else you won't make it to the celestial kingdom.
I really wasn't granted the time to develop as a person naturally because I, as a woman and an older sister, I pretty much cared for the kids like a second mom. Like, I gave them all baths and stuff, and I was constantly doing chores to my own detriment.
Yeah, there's actually a family in the church. I'm friends with their oldest daughter. She's going to go on a mission pretty soon. The women can't go on missions until they're 19. The boys can go when they're 18. Yeah, so my friend, her family, there's seven siblings in total, counting her. And I feel like it was kind of like that for her a lot. The whole family, I swear, is like autistic and stuff. Like there's one kid, he was born after like 5 months in the womb. So he's effectively a dwarf. I think he's like 14, almost 15 now. And he looks like he's 10. It's very, very sad. But yeah, when there's just that many kids in the house and you're poor, you have goats, you live basically in a ranch, like the oldest kids kind of have to pitch in whether they like it or not. And in turn, the oldest kids, like the three oldest, counting my friend, they're permanently scarred in a way where they don't necessarily realize it, or maybe they do have a little bit of self-awareness. They don't have as much autonomy as like a normal kid their age would. I mean, I say kid, but the oldest is like my age. We're 18, 19. And so as a kid that did not grow up in a big family, I do find that a bit strange, but also concerning. It's just an unfortunate reality that I don't think that can really be helped. It's tragic, and I empathize for you because I don't know what that's like.
What's valued more than hanging out with your family is serving your church and serving your callings. Because if you do that, then God's going to bless you more. But I think taking parents away from their kids like that to do these like really extensive callings where, you know, they're visiting people throughout the week and they're, you know, doing their calling on Sunday, just completely stripped away from their kids. I don't think that that's great. And I think people with kids, especially in the church, need that time with their kids. Like they can't be serving these highly intense callings that demand a lot of their time.
Okay, I have another kind of friend in the church. I would say he's my friend, but we've never really been that close because we're just such different people. But his dad is the president of the stake, which is basically the like area we're in of like all the different groups of sacrament sessions that go at different times. So yeah, he oversees like probably like 1,000 people that go to this one church that we go to, and he's just busy. So in his family, there's the kid that's about my age. He has a younger brother and then an older sister that's moved out. She's married and has her own kids and whatever. And I just kind of look at him, and I've been starting to notice he's actually starting to act like a teenager. Not like a rebellious teen, but more of like a depressed teen. You can tell he tries to like kind of hide it to where he's he's testing his faith to where he almost feels like he wants to do things outside of the church, but he just kind of can't because his mom and dad are so strict. Like he always has like a fresh cut. His hair is like always perfect, more perfect than mine. Definitely, his parents definitely won't let his hair grow this long. And so like the amount of time that his dad as the stake president kind of just spends away from the family, I can see where you're coming from, because in turn, I feel like the two boys that are left at the house are going to become a little bit more feminine than they would want. Because like the kid that's about my age, he goes to the gym, he has a six-pack and everything. He doesn't scream super masculine to me. And to be fair, I'm not super masculine either. He's definitely more of a man than I'll ever be at like 17. So yeah, that's pretty good. Like there's definitely something that needs to be addressed about the balance of like church callings and, you know, spending time with family. And of course, I don't really know exactly how their lives go. Like there was a bishop that we had, not a stake president, where it was another family with 7 kids, or apparently there was like only 6. I don't remember that though. Pretty sure there were 7. And, you know, a bishop with 7 kids that has to do all this church work and spend time away from the family. I just feel kind of sick thinking about it. Cause like there is one of the older daughters, she actually strayed away from the church at some point, and she started like posting bikini pics on her Facebook, and they were very disappointed in her. It was like a whole drama. I feel like I can add more nuance, but yeah, I feel like church callings are very demanding. And I'm a Sunday school teacher. I got it pretty easy, believe it or not. I sacrifice like one day before church, before Sunday, to just like plan the lesson, and that's about it. They don't really ask much else of me. Occasionally there's other things that might come up, but so far it's pretty chill.
And because I wasn't finding any like men I really wanted to date or anything, I decided I should go on a mission. Maybe I'll meet some guy there and, you know, form some kind of connection. Spoiler
alert, you're not allowed to engage in romantic relationships while on a mission. You can probably exchange numbers when the mission is over and when you guys go home, but other than that, you don't typically find your husband while on a mission. You find your husband at BYU. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say.
I tried being like submissive or whatever. I was like confused and hurt, and I realized that like in order to get things done in the church, you can't really be honest all the time, and they're not looking for honest. So the second time I had a new bishop, and when I went to him to say like, hey, can I go on a mission? I just made it the most bland explanation. I was just like, I want to serve my church. And the bishop was like, well, howdy doody, let's do it. At that time, I was dealing with, it was like my body was like collapsing in on me, but I wasn't trained. I wasn't taught to really care about signs of suffering. I was taught to just suffer through it. So my legs started to have problems. I had like plantar fasciitis, but I didn't know. So by the time I went to the temple, the
memories are all coming back to me now. She started talking about some of this in her main channel video on her Shgurr channel way back in the day. Yeah, she had a long story short, she's probably going to explain a little bit of it. Her experience as a missionary was miserable, and it was actually something like, I was in middle school at the time, so it was actually kind of like convincing me, oh my gosh, maybe I don't want to be on a mission either and stuff. And it actually tested my faith a lot because I was young.
The temple was quite an experience. As a kid, you're taught that the temple is this mystical, magical place where God comes down and his soul, his spirit resides in it. So you grow up singing songs about the temple because you're gonna go there one day. You're gonna get married. Like, it has to be in the temple. The temple is the place where you make covenants with God, and it's super deep and super spiritual. And the temple's not like a church. You have to get special permission to go. You have to be like very good. You have to do a bunch of things before you go. You have to get a recommend. Like, you have a little clearance card essentially to get in. And I didn't take any temple classes before, and even if I did, the ceremonies are so sacred that they're not even going to tell you what's inside, so you can't really consent to what's going to happen. But my parents did this, my grandparents did that, so of course I have to do it too. And before you go on a mission, usually people that go to the temple and get their covenants done, usually they're about to get married. But if you go on a mission, you can go to the temple as well. Even though you're still single, you need the priesthood. So you need to go like into the temple. And the priesthood is power bestowed for men because men rule over women. So I went to the temple, and one of the covenants that you make is to abide by your husband as he abides by God.
You see, I'm a Chad man because I got the priesthood when I was 16. You get it at 16, and you're able to do baptisms. And I was able to do it a few times, and it was quite magical. The temple is just an amazing place to be in. I don't care who the frick you are. If you get the opportunity to go to a temple for the first time or whatever, you gotta do it, bro. There is no place quite like it. It's clean. It smells good. Everything is echoey, so you can't talk loud. You just whisper all the time. And it's an amazing experience. And on top of being a priest and being able to do baptisms, you see, that's the perks of being a man in the church, okay? You know what I'm talking about? The women can't do baptisms. They can be baptized. We do baptisms for the dead. So our ancestors that were dead before they knew what the LDS church was, and they have chance at redemption on behalf of us. And so we get to, I baptize one of the other people, and I say their ancestor's name, like, I baptize thee, Werner Vendersnatch, and like, I'm pretending that this is Werner Vendersnatch, but this is just one of their relatives in the modern day. Wait, why are my hands like this? It's like this. Yeah, it's like this. Okay, I grab their wrist, and my other hand is up here. In the name of the Father and then they plug their nose, and I dunk them, and they get all wet and stuff. And we do that multiple times. I gotta dunk them multiple times for each of their 5 ancestors. And then I switch off to the other person with their ancestors. And it is amazing privilege, okay? And I can still do it now. If I went on a mission, I'd be able to baptize like actual non-members so that they can become a member. and stuff. But I'm not going on a mission anytime soon. I'm going to college first.
So first, when you get to the temple, they have you strip down and they have you put on this like thin fabric over yourself, and you're like completely naked underneath, and you get
completely naked. We're allowed to have underwear. I don't know about you, because when the suit gets wet, it's usually white, so then it becomes see-through. I can't imagine the type of situation that your people must have been in order for us to realize, okay, we need to let them have underwear underneath. Awkward.
It's called the initiatories, and they drop oil on your head, they give you some prayers and whatnot, and then you're able to start wearing your garments. And garments are like this like underwear that Mormons wear, and it's pretty much just like a shirt and shorts, and they come down to your knees, and there's like some symbols on them. You know, one of them means, you know, you got to kneel down to pray, and the other one's like over the heart kind of thing. They're super OCD if you ever want to throw away your garments.
To put it simply, it's a symbol of adulthood. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not wearing any garments. When I go out, I do put on cargo pants over my basketball shorts and stuff because, you know, I've decided, you know what, I'm an adult now. I don't need to be wearing basketball shorts in public or like sweatpants. I'll just wear cargo pants. They're useful. They make me not look homeless. I kind of cheat my way with the garment thing. At the same time, it's usually people that are about to go on a mission that get their garments. And so since I didn't go on a mission, they're not kind of nudging me about wearing garments and whatever. And like I said, I'm kind of cheating here. If I told my bishop about that, if my bishop is watching this video right now, he might be a little bit disappointed. He's like, okay, we need to get you some garments. You're 18. You can't be wearing basketball shorts, bruh. At the same time, like, what's the difference? I feel like basketball shorts are better because they're thicker. And so the chances of, like, I don't mean to be explicit here, but the chances of someone seeing your bulge is split in half, or like split into a third of the chance than it would if I was wearing garments, because the garments are thinner. Okay, these are thicker. I would rather wear this, to be honest. I think everyone should just wear basketball shorts under their church clothes. Like, come on. I need to start a trend.
And you wear these weird clothes in the temple too, which, like I said before, it's like the church makes fun of every other culture because they're not like modern, and yet they're doing this in their own temples.
Okay, if she lived in California and I live in a completely different state that's not California, we definitely went to different temples and different churches in a different time period. Like, this stuff that she's saying about the temple, half of it is familiar, and then the other half is like, I've never seen that before. The rules must have changed or whatever. The church is a constantly changing entity. No one in the church is perfect, and at the same time, the church itself is not perfect. Okay, like, rules they will just randomly change and stuff, and so it calls into question like the real faith that the people behind the church might have. And, you know, maybe they're making stuff up. I don't know. We're not the ones talking to Jesus. Like a good example is allowing black people to have the priesthood in the 70s and stuff. Like, why did it take that long for black people to like have the priesthood? Well, it's cause the church allegedly was threatened to have their taxes taken away or whatever by the government if they didn't let black people have the priesthood. And so there you go. That's just a rumor I heard. I think it's actually true. I don't know. I think that's what my brother told me. But he's a Norse pagan, so maybe I shouldn't listen to him. But we're told in the church, whenever a rule changes, the prophet had a revelation. He was given information by God and whatever. So now we're going to change the rules again. And so someday we might actually allow gay marriage, which I hope doesn't happen, because like Michael Knowles said, gay marriage is not real marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman, and states must respect that. Bring back homophobic Joe Biden. Where did that Biden go? And you can be gay and be in the church. You just can't get married to another dude in the church, or you're in a lesbian marriage or something, you know? And you can't be physical with the same gender and have like a calling and stuff. Like, there's a woke family in my church. The mom has like blue hair and everything. And she divorced the dad recently, and so I started seeing her come with the kids with like another woman around the same age, with colored hair. She had like rainbow hair or whatever. I was like, are they dating? And the mom has a calling in the church, so if the bishop finds out that she's being physical with another woman, then she's gonna lose that calling. She won't be excommunicated, I mean, if she admits to like scissoring her or something, or like they're actually like giving each other orgasms on a regular basis, they might actually get excommunicated. They might actually be kicked out because it's a big no-no. Yeah, and they have like 4 kids. At least like 2 of them are trans. And so that family, I fear.
When you first go to the temple, they have the newcomers become part of the prayer circle. And everyone gets in a circle and they put their elbows on each other's like shoulders. They put their arms up and stuff, and they all say a prayer as like the officiator will like read some stuff out, and then you say it back. I was horrified. I'm like, what are we doing here? And there's part of the temple ceremony where you put your hands up and then you put them down and you say like, hear the words of my mouth 3 times. And that part was freaking me out. Like, why are we saying something 3 times? Like it's a spell, like we're casting a spell on people. And then later you go up to the veil and you say a bunch of stuff that you have to memorize. And apparently, like, this is what's supposed to happen, like, in the next life in heaven, that you're supposed to have all these secret handshakes and signs and tokens and sayings, and you're supposed to present your new name, which is just one of the 30 names that they have for men and women. And then you go into the celestial room, which is a very pristine room, like, very calming, very soothing. It's full of crystals, very expensive, very clean, very white. And that's probably like the best part of the temple ceremony, is because you're just chilling there. You're just relaxing. That's probably like the most spiritual you're gonna feel, because it's just a quiet, serene, peaceful place where everyone is just really...
Incorrect. The most spiritual that I feel is in the baptismal font, where we do the baptism. And then we go into, I think, I don't know if it's the same room that she was just describing with the crystals. We don't really have crystals. I don't know what the frick she's talking about. We go into a room, and one of the church leaders that are along with us, they like put the hands on each of the dudes' heads, and they say a blessing of some sort. I don't even remember what it's for.
And like the San Diego temple is very beautiful. It's like 2 stories in that room, and it's full of crystals. And
look at that. San Diego LDS temple. I've never been here. Wow, look at that. That's muy bonita. Is it Angel Moroni? I want to go here.
Like that where it's like, this is the meditation room. Because that's essentially what the temple is. And when I was told about the temple, they're like, you can ask any question in the temple. And my autistic booty hole really thought that meant like I could ask them any questions about anything. And one of the biggest problems I had with Mormonism, even though I was still a member, was polygamy. Because polygamy is taught to be the new and everlasting covenant. Like in heaven, we don't have just one heavenly mother, like we have many heavenly mothers, and as a role for women, it's our job to be essentially incubators and just birth a bunch of spirit children for one God. And as a kid, I would always admonish myself for being super upset about that anytime polygamy would be...
Okay, polygamy is one of the biggest controversies of the Mormon Church. Polygamy was a Joseph Smith thing way back in the 1800s, and then they eventually outlawed it in like the 20th century at some point, because the US started to make it illegal to have multiple wives. And so now it's illegal everywhere to have multiple wives. Some people do it anyway. There's polyamorous relationships where they don't necessarily get married. They're just in a relationship and have, you know, multiple sources of income in one household and whatever. But that's separate from like Christianity. Like a lot of polyamorous people, they're not religious. They're just a bunch of blue-haired, ugly people that can't get a committed relationship going. Like I said, the church was not perfect. It's never been perfect. And so rules have to change because the US government just won't allow certain things. Yeah, I think there's so many problems with polyamory and polygamy. You need to commit to one spouse, because if not, you're going to have problems. Plain and simple.
Be brought up, I would get really upset because I'm not polyamorous. Like, I'm a one and done kind of person. If I can ever find someone, like, I'm not gonna, like, be with more than one person. And I know Mormons don't practice polygamy in modern day, but they did when Joseph Smith founded the church, because Joseph Smith just wanted to have everyone. He he wanted all the women for himself, but we'll get into that later. So I'm going through the temple thinking I could ask any question. So I go to my parents and I'm like, so why was like polygamy a thing? And they look at me dumbfounded, like I just asked the most random question, which I guess technically it was. And then I just, I shut that thought down and I pretended like I didn't say anything. And I was like, oh, they meant you can ask, like if you're questioning what happened in the temple, that's what they meant. But even after the temple, even though I was like super into religion at the time, I still was honest about how I felt. And I told my parents, like, I was horrified by the temple. I did not like that. But once again, you're taught to ignore your gut instinct and like, oh, it's just Satan trying to manipulate you, trying to tell you and steer you in the wrong direction. It's not actually how you feel about it because it's just Satan's influence. He's
I wanted to save this to the end of the video, but the sleeping pills are kicking in. I'm starting to crash out. I will say this, religion is not for everyone. Like, I feel like people are generally better off when they are religious because they're taught to have like instilled morals. So then they become better people. Okay. Whether or not the religion that you're a part of is founded on just nonsense. Like, you're still taught to read the Bible, and the Bible has a lot of good things. Like, even the same thing can be said about the Quran. Like, yeah, the Quran has taught a lot of radical Islamists to just murder people that don't agree with them. But at the same time, the Quran has a lot of other things that are good. And so, like, you know, as a moralistic person, you're able to just pinpoint the things that speak to you in the scriptures that you're reading and whatever, or the teachings that are taught at meetings and stuff in the church. But some people just are not made to be religious, like Shgurr here. Like, maybe she was never meant to be in the church, you know? And that's kind of like nihilistic or cynical to say, whatever the frick. I feel like if there's some people that literally cannot be assimilated into the church lifestyle, and they're just like, they might actually be better off just not having any faith, you know? And that's just the reality that some people kind of live in. Like, people's brains are just wired differently. And so, you know, we can't just make this Nazi Germany and just force people to believe a certain way, you know? People have autonomy. This is Los Estados Unidos, the United States. We can do and believe whatever we want, you know? And so, yeah, I will probably stand to my dying day that religion is better for everyone. I feel like everyone should be religious, but, you know, there's nuance. Some people are just not made to be religious because of how they were brought up or just how their brain is wired, you know?
And I go on a mission, and if you watched my Draw Your Life series, you saw how terrible that was.
So she talked about her mission in her Draw My Life video. Is that where I saw it? It wasn't a video just about the church. Oh my gosh. Here they are. The Draw My Life part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. This is when she talked about her mission. What the frick? I thought it was like a video just about the church and it was like his own thing. What the frick? I might be retarded. Oh my gosh. She never took him down.
God was all I had. So if you're telling me like God essentially hates me, I have nothing. I have nothing. Give me a second. I essentially had nothing at that point. Nothing keeping me going or any reason to try anymore, because I felt guilty because I never found like some guy on the mission to be my husband or whatever. And that's really the only reason I went on a mission, because oops.
I want to hear the rest of her story, but I will say this. I feel like her situation is just unfortunate circumstances, like the people that she has to deal with in the church. And I kind of got this from her Draw My Life videos that I just learned are still up, and she never took them down. Like, people just aren't listening to her. And I felt like I kind of had similar issues as well. But at the same time, I didn't really voice my concerns all that much because I was so scared that they would think that I was like drifting away. And I really was. I was drifting away. And Shgurr here was drifting away as well. And there was nothing that people felt like, there's nothing that these people felt like that they could do in order to fix it, because they couldn't properly recognize the signs that she was losing her faith. I don't know for a fact that it's directly related to like mental health being more regularly discussed in society, but like I feel like the church I go to, people are a little bit more open to like sharing feelings and whatever. Of like, if you're like, you can talk to the bishop if you feel like your faith is drifting away, you know, like what the frick do I do? And then you'll say, okay, are you reading your scriptures? Are you saying your prayers daily? Are you paying your tithing? Are you fasting? Whatever. And so, like I said towards the beginning of the video, like if you have a bad bishop, like, and they're not going to do anything about it, and you want to desperately stay in the church and you need to grow your faith, then you should just go to a different church or something, or join a different ward or a different stake. And so I don't know, I feel like that's all you can really do. And you know, we're not seeing the big picture here. You have God. Okay, so why don't you take the advice and actually pray, you know?
They would find someone super fast and their lives were all hunky-dory, and mine just wasn't, and I never understood why. If I didn't have God and I didn't have this Mormon husband that I was supposed to have, and you know, my dad would give me patriarchal blessings telling me like, oh, you're gonna have a husband in the next year, you're gonna meet him at school and whatever, and that would never happen. And because my worth as a Mormon woman was so strung around getting a man, like I essentially gave up, and that's when I had my first suicide attempt. And I can't talk about the second time I did that because it would put certain people at risk. So I can't get into specifics on the second one, but I got really lucky on my second time. Right before I attempted the second time, my brain was essentially like scrambling for anything to keep me alive. And at the time I thought it was like the spirit of God or whatever, but no, it was, my brain was desperate. Like, my body was trying to tell me things and to keep me from doing that. And essentially what happened is, my brain kind of told me like, hey, I love you. I've always loved you. And I'm right here. Like, have you ever considered self-love? And I could say at that point in my life, I had never once considered that at all. In the church, you're taught, like, if the bishop gives you a calling, you're supposed to take it. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. It doesn't matter if you know you're probably not good enough for that job. It doesn't matter. Just take the job. Ignore your feelings. Ignore your gut instincts, because the happiness of the group is more important than your own happiness, essentially. And it was around this time that I started learning about narcissism, and like I was seeing it a lot in how the church is structured, and how, if you love me, keep my commandments, and if you don't keep them, well, then you're essentially damned to hell, kind of thing. And I was like, well, that's a little messed up, and how controlling the church can be about a lot of things like appearance and garments and how you talk, how you dress, how you speak, what kind of things you like. All of your talents need to go to the church. I'm like an artist, and I always had this guilt that I wasn't, drawing for the church. And
okay, that's a lot of information I had to take in there. I heard this from Ben Shapiro. So the point of religion is to have an objective truth about yourself, the world, or God that is true whether you like it or not. I think Ben said that in like the context of like trans people or something. So he's like, you may think that you're a woman, but you're not a woman. You were born a man, so you must be a man. Okay, God intended you to be a man, and that is the objective truth, whether you like it or not. So in this case, for Shgurr, the point of the LDS church is to have the eternal truths. Okay, you probably shouldn't drink alcohol because you'll get addicted and you'll have alcohol poisoning and you'll do bad things. You probably shouldn't take cocaine because same thing, you do bad things and you get addicted and you spend too much money on it. You probably shouldn't have schmex before marriage because, stuff happens, or so I'm told. I don't know. And so if you're told to keep certain commandments, then, the rules of being in that church, they still apply. You got to keep those commandments, okay? If you want to make it to the celestial kingdom and all that. And so you may see it as like narcissism. I feel like if God is the one that created the world and Jesus is the one perfect being that has ever graced the earth, I feel like they have room and a right to be narcissistic, okay? Because there is nothing above God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost, okay? So narcissism is different when like literally nothing can transcend those three beings, okay? Narcissism is when, I don't know, for example, a bishop might think that he's the second coming of Christ or something. That's narcissism. Okay, that's how a lot of cults are started. So yeah, if you're offended that you have to keep certain commandments and you're just uncomfortable, I don't know. I think all I gotta say is that's a you problem. Okay, if you don't want to keep the commandments, then you have the choice to leave. And the consequence, if the church is true, you won't make it to the celestial kingdom. Actions have consequences. Some things are just true no matter what, whether you like it or not.
It's not like you have a chapter in the Bible that's like, oh, women, you should drink these teas for your hormones and you should eat this way, because I was struggling with so many like body problems and mental problems, and I was trying to fix them all at the same time, which is like a lot. It was a lot. I was dealing with like CPTSD, and I was trying to figure that out. I was trying to heal like childhood trauma.
She uses the example of like the Bible not really saying anything about what to do to balance your hormones. I don't want to like go hyper focus on that, but like that sounds like something you need to talk to a doctor for. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is here, the Bible has answers for your religion and what you should do to be a good person. Your doctor has answers for, your hormones and like what food to eat and whatever. The Bible is something that was written thousands of years ago, okay? Or the Old Testament anyway was written thousands of years ago. And so they wouldn't have this hormone knowledge, okay? I feel like there's a really good way of explaining and debunking what she just ranted about. All I can definitively say is that the Bible is for very specific things, and you're not going to find every single answer to humanity and the universe in the Bible. I guess it's a cheap blow to just kind of nitpick it and say, oh, the Bible doesn't have any answers about periods. But yeah, like I said earlier, like the church, it has rules about gender rules and like what men are meant to do and what women are meant to do, okay? And you don't choose the gender that you are. You're just born the way you are. And so the sad truth is that you just kind of have to live with it. Like you can't be like the Catholic Church and just all of a sudden have female bishops, because that's not in God's plan. Women are there to just have kids and raise those kids, and the dads work and they're bishops, they do baptisms and whatever. And so if you don't like that, then the church has objective truths that are true no matter what you think. So that's a you problem. That's all I gotta say.
The church was founded by a man named Joseph Smith, who said he found some golden plates and then he translated the Book of Mormon and all that. But no one ever actually saw the gold plates. And then the angel took away the plates. That's pretty convenient, don't you think? And his first vision account is really what a lot of, the modern day prophets say is like the end all be all. If that account is wrong, then the whole church is wrong. Well, that first vision account, there's multiple different versions that Joseph Smith would tell throughout the years. And during his time, there was other churches just like his telling similar tales. And the one that the church uses today is nothing like his first account. And if you're going to give an account of a story, you're going to have to go to like the first one someone says. So if they're like 12 and they're like, this is what happened, then you're going to look at that account because it's going to be the most accurate one because it just happened. But over the years, he completely changed the story. And the first vision is all about him and, God telling him, hey, here's my church and I want you to restore it. But in his first account of the first vision, it's nothing about that. It's about him getting forgiven for his sins. And it wasn't about how Jesus and God are like different people, and wasn't that at all. So when I read that, it's like my faith collapsed.
Okay, I knew that she was going to bring up the Joseph Smith story, because this is like, if I had to guess, probably the most make or break, mind blown moment that people have that caused them to leave the church. They go to outside sources that tell the Joseph Smith story, and basically what she said, like, I actually heard the non-church version like last year for the first time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I see why so many people leave the church once they hear this stuff. And in the church, we're told not to look to outside sources, kind of biasly explain what the church is like and just kind of bash it down and whatever. With all the different accounts of the Joseph Smith story and how the church got started, like, how do we know what is true and what is not, you know? And so that's why Brigham Young University is called Brigham Young University, I feel like, because Joseph Smith, he wasn't perfect, neither was Brigham Young, but Brigham Young was the businessman that kind of had the church skyrocket after Joseph Smith died and stuff, and they were in Salt Lake City, in Utah, and whatever. And so without Brigham Young, the church would not be what it is today. And so Brigham Young contributed arguably a lot more than Joseph Smith did, even though he was the one that received the golden plates and he was able to translate them and, you know, able to distribute the Book of Mormon and all that and convert like hundreds of people. Brigham Young, like, he was able to do that and like just everything, all the galaxy explosion. The LDS church is just big, 17.5 million members today. That's amazing. Like 150, 160 years after Joseph Smith died. So let's say that the story is not true. I still don't think that really matters, because I look at all the things that the church has done and all the things that the Book of Mormon or any of the morals that has been put upon the world since the restoration of the gospel that Joseph Smith has brought, along with Brigham Young and stuff. I think religion is just good for people, and I think the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church, is just Christianity plus. It has more rules, but in turn, it births out better people that have more grounded morals. They don't use profanity. They don't have premarital schmexy. They have kids and raise them right, for the most part. I've ranted all throughout this video about the problems I've had with some of the parents in the church, but, you know, still, I feel like if you're able to do it right, then I think you're winning. I said it before and I'll say it again. The point of religion is to have an objective truth that's true no matter what. So if you're not able to see the good that can come out of your faith and what you can bring out into the world, and, you know, maybe even go as far as converting people and showing them that life is more than just paying taxes and having children before marriage. You can have children after marriage, and you can pay taxes in Utah that go to the government and the church and whatever. And so that's pretty good. Like, giving money to the church is just better than giving money to the government, you know? And like the Book of Mormon has been spread to all these different countries because of the missionaries. We have 367 temples now. Yeah, 367. And they're all over the world. Like, we got a bunch in Indonesia, we got some in Africa, in Europe, and mostly in the US as well. And then we have some in South America, in Central America, and whatever, in Mexico. If you think the church does more harm than good, and you think the story is just BS about Joseph Smith restoring the gospel, then, you know, that's your opinion. And so it's up to you to look into the good side of it. And so that's all I gotta say.
Women in the church are not treated well. We are second-class citizens. We are below men. We're taught to essentially worship men. Is there any women gods? No. Is there any, like, guidance for women's health or anything like that in the Bible, in practices or anything? No. Because we're not important. Because men don't understand women's problems because they're not women.
Yeah, I hear a lot of women say this a lot. And to look at it like women are second-class citizens in the church is very cynical. Women are important. They do have important roles, okay? Now, separate from the incubator stuff, all right? Having children, that is not the one role that you have, obviously. It's not your one role to be a husband, to be a wife and a mother. I need to go to sleep. Oh my gosh. I feel like an actual mother would be able to explain this best, because women do, in fact, find purpose in the church. They do find happiness, okay? So, in your perspective, they're oppressed and they're second-class citizens, but the women that I've seen, they're happy. So that means you're wrong, you know? I don't know. As a dude, when we're taught about church stuff, they don't really tell us about what the women are doing. I don't know. I can probably ask one of my friends at school. And that's exactly what I did. Now, Editor Teagues back at it again. So I actually went to school and I asked one of my Mormon friends, what are their thoughts on the women being oppressed in the church? People have complaints about the church. The church forces kids, has them learn that they need to be submissive to their husbands, they need to pick up after the men. And for some reason, women can't be bishops, they can't be priests, they can't do all that other stuff. And my friend hesitated a little bit, thinking really hard how to answer the question. And long story short, she doesn't really have much of a problem with what the church is teaching everyone. And she's not really familiar with the women need to be submissive to their husbands thing. I think that really is just personal preference. And so we did actually start to talk about the young men and women's theme. So down here in the fourth little paragraph, with faith, I will strengthen my home and family, make and keep sacred covenants, and receive the ordinances and blessings of the holy temple. So strengthen my home and family? That's basically what we're taught. We're not told, look, if your husband tells you to do the dishes, you do the dishes. And so I think we can kind of conclude, as I've talked to my mom, as I talked to my friend, you know, the church has rules, it has a culture, it has a standard, okay? And if you don't follow all those rules and if you don't follow the standard, you're not going to be kicked out. But if you feel like you need to leave because the church is too misogynistic, then that's your opinion, all right? And so that's really the best answer I can give. If you don't like the church, just leave. It's as simple as that, okay? Now, with that being said, I don't think there's really going to be an answer that will make everyone happy. I feel like if you're a radical feminist, and I'm not saying Shgurr is a radical feminist, but she's radical feminist adjacent, you know? If you're someone like Shgurr, and you don't like the church for these feminist reasons, then that's your opinion. That's just the weakest answer I can give, but that's also the best answer I, Professor Teagues, can provide, given the discussions I had with my mother and my friends, okay? We don't have a problem with the church in that aspect. And so if you have a problem, that's your opinion. Let us continue. The video is almost over. Congratulations on getting it this far. Yes, very nice.
The church teaches to be charitable, which is a good thing, but it's a bad thing because they teach that you're supposed to give the money to the church, so you do, and now they're sitting on like billions of dollars. Billions of money that they could be giving to the poor, but they don't. So it's kind of under false pretenses. And
what are you talking about? They use the money for charity as well as building temples. I have a friend that's not religious that says that he thinks that the LDS prophet Russell M. Nelson, he uses the tithing money to like buy sports cars or something. Funny enough, the prophet was a heart surgeon, so I'm sure he's pretty well off in his retirement. So I don't imagine realistically he would be using that money for sports cars. Like you can look it up. The church, it do be doing that charity, and the church does help people spiritually and philanthropy, like Mr. Beast. The LDS church is literally a Christian Mr. Beast. The word beast is like a Satan word. We're like better than Mr. Beast, you know?
On Fast Sunday, they tell you to give even more of your money, which you think, oh, I'm helping the poor, but then they don't use it on the poor. They're just sitting on it. And that makes me upset.
Also, another thing that they use the money for, you can have like an interview with the bishop, with like any bishop, and be like, I've been struggling on some rent here, and thinking you can give me like 800 and whatever. And if you can negotiate your way pretty decently, the bishop will give you rent money, not just once, but multiple times if you do it in exchange for something like doing service. Like you can be invited to like a Tuesday or a Wednesday mutual kind of thing where you go to someone's house, you pick weeds or you take out trash, just whatever the frick service that they have. You can basically pay off that money. I know that the church does that because my brother was able to get money for rent like twice, but he didn't have time to like do service or anything, so that he only got rent money twice, or just maybe it was just once, I don't know. Like people are being helped through the money of the tithing, so this is like actual misinformation, and I know for a fact it's not true. So thanks.
The church likes to say, oh, men and women are equal, but they're not, because women are treated like underclass citizens. We really are. And to think about being in the next life, being some god's concubine, ain't very fun. It's not fun, and it's just sad. The church teaches modesty, but the church also teaches that if you wear anything inappropriate, you essentially become pornography for men. As if men are like wild creatures that can't handle their own sexual desires. Like they can't.
Man here. We are animals. I love porn. If you wear a low-cut top, I'm gonna be staring at it. I want to motorboat it. So please dress modestly in the church. Haven't we learned by now? Manly men are creatures. Don't wear low-cut shirts. Well, yeah, that was a long overdue watch. I've been meaning to make a video kind of updating my thoughts about my church in particular, so I felt like this is a good way to kind of address some of that. All right, I said it before and I'll say it again. The church is not perfect, and I do have my own criticisms that are, you know, some of it do align to what Shgurr said. The church has a controversial past, and so I'll end this video on this point here. I think honesty is what we need in the church right now, in all churches, but the LDS church in particular. Can we please talk about the controversial past? Can we please talk about the fact that Joseph Smith may have lied about some parts of the story? To the adults, not to the kids, okay? We want to lie to the kids. I want the kids to be lied to every single day, because the kids are the vulnerable subjects here. As adults, we should be developed enough to understand, yeah, religion's pretty good, okay? However, the church that we're in might be a bit iffy on the story here. I think the story, in my opinion, one of the least interesting parts. Whenever I hear about the Joseph Smith story, it's like, I don't really care that much. And we're currently talking about it with the kids, and I have to like do things to make it interesting, and it's kind of a struggle because I'm not even that interested in the story. I care about the end result. Okay, it's not about the journey, it's about the end result. It's about what the Book of Mormon and the scriptures and the Bible and whatever teach. That's all that really matters. So if we can just address the fact that, you know, we had the polygamous past. When people ask us about polygamy, why do you practice polygamy? What do you even say? Oh, we don't practice polygamy anymore. That was thrown away years ago. The state of the church right now is better than I think it's ever been. We have so many members. We have a lot of temples. We have a lot of people with strong testimonies and faiths. And so maybe addressing the controversial past, and like, you're going to come across it. Okay. You're going to come across anti-Mormon literature. You're going to have people criticize your beliefs and the church that you're in. And so why can't we just learn about how to kind of debunk the accusations and show them real proof that the church isn't what they think it is? Maybe even admit that, yeah, the church is not perfect. The people in the church are not perfect. It gets so much more complicated than it needs to be. If the Joseph Smith story isn't true, then that just kind of like has the whole church foundation kind of just tumble down. But I don't even, is tumble a word? Is it? I'm too tired for this. I'm too pregnant for this. I'm Candace Owens. I'm pregnant right now. But yeah, at the end of the day, religion's good. The LDS Church in particular is the best religion in the world because it has the best morals and best rules. How you put those rules in place in your own family is another question that you need to figure out. So I'm going to go to bed, and I'll see you guys not tomorrow. I'll see you guys maybe in the next few weeks because we're going to have a Portal 2 video coming out. That's pretty good. All right. Sub to the main channel, follow the Rumble, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok, and join the Discord server. Follow other social media. Bye bye.